So there comes a time in every young girl's life when she finally becomes a woman. Unfortunately for me, I didn't realize how young we become women. Yeah, I figured that out at a New Year's Eve party. I just got done singing my favorite karaoke jam, Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus, of course, and the countdown to 2017 was about to start. 5, 4, 3, 2, oh my gosh. I guess my body had its own New Year's resolution to ruin my life. That's right, not only did I ring in the new year with confetti poppers and fireworks, but my menstruation cycle had started. And as a scared 12-year-old, I had no idea what was going on. Years later, when I tell this story to many of my close girlfriends, I realized how not alone I was in that situation. Many young girls don't know what to do once they get their first period. I mean, heck, I was barely taught how to use menstrual hygiene products until 7th grade. Okay, pause. Do you feel a little uncomfortable right now? Like, maybe this isn't something we should be discussing in public, let alone in an ADS? My point exactly. We have stigmatized menstruation cycles and made it a shameful thing for women when we can't control it. And I can only imagine what today's girls are going through with legislation being passed to not even say the word period in classrooms. That's right, on top of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, they're now passing the Don't Say Period bill. At this point, I think Florida is just trying to go for a record of how many don't says they can do. But for so long, we have viewed periods as something gross and unladylike to talk about when it's the most ladylike thing we do. So today, let's first look at the negative stigma history has perpetuated about periods. Next, we'll look at how it's affecting today's women, before finally putting an end to this long period of stigma. According to the National Health Services, most girls start their period when they're about 12 years old, but can start as early as 8. So it's important to talk to your girls from an early age to make sure that they're prepared. But from a young age, girls are also taught to fear their periods and feel ashamed of them. Women are primarily taught not to discuss their reproductive health, while boys engage in a "you show yours, I'll show mine" kind of self-indulgence. Women are conditioned with the don't ask, don't tell mindset about sexual reproduction and womanhood in general. But have you ever heard some of the whack beliefs historians thought about menstruation cycles? Aristotle, one of the great Greek philosophers and influencers on our Western society, literally referred to women as mutilated men deviating from the genetic human type. Now, what was his reasons for these drastic kinds of statements? Menstruation. Or what about what the Bible calls code red? In Leviticus 19:13 through 30, it states that a woman was clinically unclean for 7 days while she was on her period. And any person who touched a woman on their period was also unclean until nightfall. During that time, women were also excused from their household tasks or any stressful chores, because it was deemed that anything they touched would also become unclean. Finally, in the 1920s and 30s, doctors believed women elaborated something called menotoxin, and we could wilt flowers just by walking past them. I'm not kidding, an American doctor literally thought that at one point. Don't you think if we had this secret superpower, we could be laying waste to the crops and spoiling the milk, don't you think we would have used that ex-woman power to get the vote sooner? And that's exactly what happens when we don't talk about what's happening with our bodies. How do we break these myths? Because trust me, you don't need to be a doctor to say that periods ain't toxic. So now that we've gotten some of the super weird historical beliefs about menstruation out of the way, let's talk about how it's affecting today's women. Growing up, a very common insult to hear between boys or girls, if one's bad mood or distress over something, was because they were on their period. For an example, if a boy didn't want to hang out with his friends after school, his friend would then ask, "Why? Are you on your period? He used this question to make the first student re-establish his masculinity by doing what he originally declined to do. This example shows us how menstruation is used as a weapon to instill shame and fear into people. And it also shows us how femininity is disbarred to reinforce masculinity. This mentality of using menstruation as an insult must stop if we're moving towards a more equal society. So now that how are we preparing young girls if we are stigmatizing and shaming a natural bodily function? Well, I mentioned earlier that Florida recently passed the Don't Say Period bill. The bill proposes banning any form of health education until the 12th grade. And it would prohibit students asking any questions about menstruation, including their own first periods. Which, typically occur before the 12th grade. Call me crazy, but I think menstrual hygiene education should start before it begins. Did you know over 22 million women living in poverty right now cannot afford menstrual hygiene products? This is a problem known as period poverty. This is a type of poverty that only affects women, when we never asked to get our periods. If we had it my way, girls would be mermaids. I mean, think about it. No pants, no periods, perfect hair, and no periods. I don't know about you, but I want to be part of that world. So now let's finally put an end to this long period of stigma. We need to address the stigma around menstruation to understand and fix the challenges people face around access to menstrual hygiene education and products. First, I think we need to be educating boys to some degree on what happens during girls' time of the month. Girls and boys need reliable information about periods, so it's important that we talk to our sons about it too. Guys, at one point or another in your lives, you're going to have a sister, a friend, a girlfriend, or a girl in your life who is hurting from cramps, feeling bloated, or suffering from the numerous side effects that we get with having our period. And rather making it feel like it's something they can't discuss with you, make yourself someone they can. Fortunately, we do have some men of menstruation allies out there, like Chance Ward, who took to social media with his experience, who demonstrated understanding and support while at the gym. He overheard a woman asking for a tampon, and without hesitation, he offered one from his fanny pack. Ward's actions exemplify how men can approach periods with empathy and without shaming women for natural bodily functions. Or, in his words, never feeling embarrassed for being human. Additionally, we must promote open discussion about menstruation. Throughout my whole speech, I have been using words like code red, time of the month, Shark Week. But they all mean the same thing. Menstruation. We should be using the more direct language like menstruation, bleeding, and ovulation to break the stigma around this natural aspect of being a woman. Embracing the honest, authentic vocabulary can help normalize the experience for those who go through menstruation and those who don't. Bleeding is normal. It's a part of menstruation. So even though I'm not always happy to get my period each month, I'm glad I'm confident enough to speak out about menstruation. Today, we first looked at the negative stigma history has perpetuated about periods. Next, how it's affecting today's women, before finally putting an end to this long period of stigma. We can move forward as a society with less shame and stigma. Period. Literally.